Hiya, another video, another day. What we're going to do today is I'm going to look at something different. Now, the previous video was the Castlevania Spectral interlude, and that was unusual in that it's the first sort of like homebrew a game that I'd ever tried or downloaded or played. I knew that you know, people still create games for the Spectrum even 20 odd years after the machine was discontinued. There's obviously still a massive interest in it, not only the Spectrum but other systems as well. So I thought I'd check a couple of these out because I was really impressed with the quality of the Castlevania game. It's definitely easy to say that if it was released back in the day, it would have been one of the sort of best games ever for the Spectrum. So I hunted, decided to have a little look around and see some other homebrew games. I know that Retro Gamer magazine, etc., used to do, or still does, like a homebrew scene section in it, but I always used to tend to just sort of flick past that. I didn't think that the games would be much cop, but the Castlevania one sort of opened my eyes, and it's made me think, you know, should really check some of these out, as well as playing more classic games. So a little bit about why do I love the Spectrum. It was we got the first rubber key one, myself and my brother, in 1984. It was bought for us in Folkestone, and we played it to death. We literally played it to death until it didn't work anymore. In Christmas 1986, I got a +2. But there we go. Which I played all the time, as much as I could. This +2 is my wife's. I'm not sure she realises she's donated it to the cause as yet, but that's hers. Actually, it's in better condition than my one. I don't know if you can sort of see, but one of them's a little bit grubby and grotty. That's my one, and the other one's quite a lot nicer in condition, and that's hers. They both still work, and last year a work colleague kindly sold me that. There is a Spectrum in the box. It never comes out though. That's my sort of prized possession. When I play games on the Spectrums themselves, I'll use the +2s because I don't want to get the rubber key out. But when it came to sort of like programming, it was all double Dutch to me, all gobbledygook. I could never ever do anything other than write rude words on display models and run away from WH Smith really quickly before anyone caught us. That was about the limit of my programming skills. My brother managed to write a couple of decent basic programs, get them working, etc., but it never got them published. So I thought I would check out, a bit like being intrigued by the fact that people still want to learn how to program this machine and write games for it. Not just this one, but others as well. So I decided I'd check some out, and I was just accidentally came across this one that I'm going to show you today, because I was flicking through my Twitter feed the other day, and someone had retweeted into the feed a tweet from repixelate.com advertising their new game, which is the one I'm going to show you today. It's called Flype. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. I'll have a look at that. So I downloaded it and I've played it, and I'm going to show you the game in action very, very quickly. And also in the description doodah below the video, I'll put a link to the website so that you can try it out if you want. Now, I decided to contact the author over Twitter, just asking for various bits and pieces, background information that I could use, etc. In this video to show you. And very kindly Repixelate answered quite a few of my questions. The first one, the first sort of question I asked was, what was the inspiration behind the game? And it turns out that way back when, on the Commodore Amiga, there was a game called Cool Croc Twins, which was also released on the Commodore 64, and but never on the Spectrum. So what I'll do later, I'll show you a very brief gameplay segment of the Commodore 64 version, just so you can see the inspiration side by side between Flype and Cool Croc Twins. And it was a game that Repixelate really enjoyed and had never seen anything quite like it up to this day. So the inspiration for it came from that, and the actual planning, programming, etc. Was not the programming, was undertaken on a long flight. Every time I ever went on a long flight, I wish I could have done something as productive as that, rather than just sit there and eat peanuts and get drunk or fall asleep. And then the actual level design for the game took several weeks. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the game. This is a 2015 release, so again at the end of it I'll show you everything that you need to do to hunt the game down yourself if you want to try it out. And we'll compare it alongside Cool Croc Twins as well, just so that you can see about the inspiration for the game came from. I think if you take the step of downloading Flype, you're really going to enjoy it. Now, Repixelate's hobby is making retro games for old systems. If you look on the website, there are numerous games for the Atari consoles, and also a couple of games for the Mega Drive. But this is the first Spectrum game that they've done. I think it's really good. I enjoyed it. It's tough, but we'll go through the video together. And again, I'm probably not the best person in the world to show gameplay videos, because I am not the best person in the world at playing games. However, let's get on with it and go through the video. Okay. Okay, so we're now in Flype at the title screen. So we'll watch the animation play out there before we get into the main game. Here we go. It's Flype, copyright Repixelate 2015. There's the instructions, very basic. You have to fill the bubbles up by bouncing into them and avoiding the baddies. So here we go. Now it's a bit strange in that you don't float freely around the screen. You're confined to any kind of solid surface as such. And there's only 3 controls: left, right and jump. And you've got to work your way around, fill these bubbles up and avoid the baddies. Now you've got to keep an eye out, because when you change the way you're pointing, i.e. if you're at the top of the screen, on the sides or whatever, then the controls invert, which can be a little bit off-putting. It gives you another thing to think about. It's actually quite a clever sort of gameplay mechanic. It means that you've got to sort of look at the screen, figure out what you're going to do before you sort of get on with it. Levels are really quite well designed. You see, if you bump each bubble 3 times, it eventually fills up. Oh, you've got to avoid those spikes. Again, the controls alter. Let's just try and get the last one without getting spiked. There we go. Things get a little bit more tricky on the next level. Really took me a while to sort of work out what I had to do on this one. As you can see, I cocked it up a few times. But that's what I mean about, you know, you've got to take time to look at what's going on the screen and plan your approach around it, which eventually I managed to do. So I've got to wait for that little ghosty thing to sort himself out. And then, oh, ah. See, the good thing about Flype is that it is difficult. It is a toughie, there's no doubt about that. But it's not so tough that you know, it's off-putting. If there's any mistakes that are made, they're your mistakes. They're not things that are forced upon you by poor game design, etc. Hence, you know, you've really got to sort of think on your feet a lot of the time with it. So very simple in design, but quite fiendishly difficult at times, but also very addictive. You know, and a game doesn't have to look spectacular, although this is a really nice looking little game. If the gameplay is there, it doesn't matter what the game looks like. This game is extremely playable. Like I say, I'm not very good at the ones that require an awful lot of thought to go into them. But I've been enjoying this. I've only got a few levels into it. Definitely keep playing it because I'm intrigued to see what happens next, if you know what I mean. When you get to later levels, how fiendish the sort of the level design becomes. It gets fairly tricky fairly early, but that's no bad thing, you know. It's definitely a case of keeps you coming back for just that one more go. So here's the one where I cocked it up last time. So I just wait and plan my attack, and then off we go. Right, it's really good to see that, you know, that the machine is 33 years old and people are still writing games for it. Like I said in the intro, I've never sort of paid much attention to the sort of home produced games. I didn't think they'd be any good, but having played the Castlevania one and now this, you know, they are good. Some of them are fantastic, and I'll definitely hunt some more of them down and do some gameplay videos on them. Now, this is uncharted territory for me, this level. I've never actually got this far. So, ooh, dead straight away. Look at that. So we'll see how we manage to get on with this. Oh dear. Got to watch those arrows changing direction. So again, you've got to sort of plan your, not do what I do, which is just start the game straight away. It helps to take a few seconds to work out exactly what's going on the screen. There we go. Semi amount of success there. Nearly spiked myself, but got away with. Oh dear, blimey. Never mind. Anyway, that's a really nice little game. Well worth a download, I'd say. I've come back to it several times today, just to sort of have a go at it and try and beat my paltry best score, which is, you know, screen number 4, without getting spiked. But it's really good. Another thing as well, you only bump the bubbles 3 times. If you accidentally bump them a 4th, they empty, so you've got to go through it again. So that's another thing to look out for in the game. Okay, right, I'm going to stop rabbiting and we'll crack on. Okay, what we're going to do is take a quick look at the Cool Crop Tins, which is the game that Repixelate said inspired Flype. Now, it's the Commodore 64 version. It didn't come out on the Spectrum, so I can't compare it against the Spectrum version. So let's just take a quick look at that gameplay-wise and see the differences and similarities between the two. Okay, let's get on with it. Okay, we're here on the Commodore 64 version of Cool Croc Twins, and you can see it's presented differently to Flype, kind of prehistoric sort of jungle type atmosphere, and there's blocks to fill up instead of bubbles with liquid. And you can see almost straight away what Repixelate mean by this game is the inspiration for Flype. I can't recall seeing a game with a similar gameplay style to this ever really, on any sort of system. I was unfamiliar with Cool Croc Twins. It was something I've never encountered or played before. I don't know how successful it was or anything like that. It was a 1991 release, I believe by Empire Software. So you're looking, although that this was a Commodore 64 version, it was the Amiga version that Repixelate played. Now, the only reason I'm playing the Commodore 64 version is that I've got a Commodore 64 emulator. I don't have an Amiga emulator. I know absolutely nothing about the Amiga platform. It sort of passed me by a bit at the time, but it retains Flype's playability and charm, really. You can see it's very nicely presented, lots of character, bundles of character in fact. It's a really pleasant little game, but fiendish. You see I'm only on the second level here, and it's given me a bit of jip in relation to the control system. But like I say, exactly the same as with Flype, whatever mistakes are made are my mistakes. They're not mistakes that are because of poor gameplay mechanics. It's really nice little, quite original game actually. Anyway, just let this video play out, and you can see whether or not this is a game you fancy tracking down as well. Okay, bye bye. Okay, that was Flype from Repixelate. Now, I really enjoyed that game. You can tell an awful lot of thought has been put into the design, etc. And when Repixelate say that the actual level designs took quite a few weeks, you can understand that. It's very tricky, but not to the point of being off-putting. It's not like Airwolf tricky. And whenever I fail, it's because of something I haven't taken into account, not because of a fault in the gameplay mechanics. Although it looks simple, there's enough things going on in there that you've got to think about that can sort of trip you up, such as the way as you orientate yourself around the screen, the controls reverse, and you've got to bear that in mind, because that can catch you out, trip you up, and you saw a couple of times that is what happened. Now, with the gameplay segment from the Commodore 64 version of Cool Croc Twins, I know I shouldn't be putting a Commodore 64 game into a Spectrum video, but the game never came out on the Spectrum, so That's why I play. But you can see the inspiration in Cool Croc Twins, and the similarities and also the differences between the two. Flype is, you know, its own game in its own right. It's not a rip-off of Cool Croc Twins. It's a very, very, very good tribute. Cool Croc Twins has the kind of prehistoric sort of jungle feel to its artwork, etc. And Flype has a more sort of industrial sort of look and feel about it. And in fact, the main character actually reminded me a little bit of Blob from Starquake, and that's no bad thing because Starquake's a fantastic game. But I would strongly urge you to check Flype out. I'm going to keep playing it. You know, it is tricky, but then you know, it'd be a bit pointless if it was an easy game. And there was one or two moments in it, but again, like I said, they were because I'd cocked up, not because the game itself was ropey in any way, shape or form. It's a very, very simple design. There's only 3 keys, left, right and jump. So you know, there's no sort of like masses of keyboard controls, etc. It's all done by those 3 keys. Very, very good graphics, very, very good level design, nice sound, nice soundtrack. Everything about it is functional, and for a first effort as a Spectrum game, it's you know, something to be proud of. I'd be proud of it, and if it had been released back in the day, I'd have certainly paid a few quid for it, especially if it was on like a kind of Mastertronic type range. But that's Flype. That's their first Spectrum game from Repixelate. Check it out. You won't regret it. You will need a Spectrum emulator. I do say that, even though that might be stating the bleeding obvious. But I did have a friend at work. We were talking about games, and I said, "Oh, you can download games, or you can get games from X, Y, and Z website." And the next day they came back, and I was like, "Oh, I just couldn't play it." I was like, "Well, what emulator are you using?" And they went, "Emulator? What's one of them?" So there are some people out there that don't know that you need emulators. So have a crack at it. It's a really, really fun game. That's the end of this video review. Hope you liked it. I'm going to check out more homebrew games. As ever, if you want to follow me on Twitter, the address is there. And also there is a link in the descriptions box for the video as to where you can find Flype and download it if you want to give it a go. Thanks ever so much for your help. Thanks ever so much for watching, and goodbye.